We are going to be talking about some weekend matches here across NWSL. All 12 clubs in action. 6 matches between Friday and Saturday that took place. Let's start with maybe the high scoring affairs here with NWSL this weekend. We had a couple of blowouts. We had a handful of blowouts taking place this weekend, and I know that in some of our previewing we were saying like we want to see some little lopsided score lines. I know it's a couple of these teams. That's what we were asking of them, and I think some of them deliver. But we're gonna start. We have to start with the highest score line of the weekend, which is Houston Dash against Orlando Pride, putting up 5 goals on Orlando Pride, a hat trick for Nichelle Prince. Lisa, maybe let's start with the picks. We did a preview of this game. I think we both went. We went with Houston in this one, so yay for being correct in that. But I don't think
we both went with Houston. But did either of us imagine 5 goals for Houston?
I'm like, I don't think we could have imagined a 5-0 scoreline for this team, or maybe even a hat trick for Houston and Nichelle Prince. But I'm here for it. I think. I think coming out of this game, when we're seeing these performances from this Houston Dash side, one of the things that was surrounding this team was the fact that they had to start off their regular season with some unfortunate headlines around the club. So they had to start off their regular season being eliminated from Challenge Cup contention. They had to start off their regular season without their head coach and James Clarkson, who was asked to, was recommended to be suspended or removed away from the team as an ongoing investigation is currently underway. This is something that is stemming from 2021, where there is just a collective investigations that are going on between the league and Players Association, just across the league. In terms of investigating certain things. And so they, based on recommendation, they said, we're going to be moving forward this season with Sarah Louden as the interim for now. So there hasn't been an update in terms of the ongoing investigations right now with James Clarkson, Houston Dash, the league, the Players Association. And because of that, that is why there is that title still over Sarah Louden of the interim head coach. We don't have any intel in terms of what that's going to mean for the future of this club. But in the event, I think the Dash find themselves needing to look for a permanent solution. I don't know how you look at this start for this club and how they're playing and reacting with Sarah Louden and not give her the nod. I mean, it's a really impressive start that we're seeing out of this Houston Dash side, getting results and picking them up and getting them over. Not just people might look at level of competition here and say, okay, so you put up 5 goals against Orlando, but this is a team that also went into Portland and took it to them and came out with a win there. So just some good stuff from the Dash to start this season.
Completely. I think the conversation right now about Sarah Louden, the interim head coach that stepped into this role, is a really good conversation to be able to take a team that wasn't necessarily yours, you were an assistant on, and be able to change things says a lot about Louden and what she can do with the player personnel that she's been given. But when we looked at this matchup between Houston and Orlando, I mean, huge props to Nichelle Prince. She got that first hat trick. And even after that first goal, the confidence changed in Prince, and she was more willing to go at the goal and take those shots and take a little bit more risks. But Sandra, you always usually ask me about the starting lineups, and this starting lineups that we got for both Houston and Orlando, I was shocked at Orlando because they were missing Carrie Lawrence in the back line. Celia was also out, and those are 2 outside back defenders for Orlando and Amanda Cromwell that have been consistent in those roles, especially Carrie Lawrence. And to not have them in there, it had Gunny Jonsdottir dropping from a midfield position to an outside back role, along with Carrie Abello, who is a rookie for Orlando. So immediately, as I saw that starting lineup, I'm circling those outside backs because Jonsdottir is an incredible defender and she's a great player in the midfield. But to rotate her into an outside back position, it's a different role. It's very different. And when you're going up against Maria Sanchez and Nichelle Prince, Prince and Sanchez had to be chomping at the bit to get into those open spaces. And that's exactly what they did. I mean, 3-0 at halftime. And it was Sanchez and Prince occupying those spaces where there were newer outside backs in the role for Orlando. A really nice job at doing that and finding those spaces, the weaknesses of your opponents, and then really digging your fangs in and going at that. And that's exactly what Houston did. We have to give a shout out to Rachel Daly as well, because she was involved in every single part of the attack that Houston had. It was such a big game for Daly. Now she's leaving Houston. She goes to Europe for the Euros with England. So I think a way for Daly to leave and kind of put her stamp on this league and this Houston team before she heads overseas was really impressive to see. Jane Campbell in goal for Houston had a really good game. It was the complete picture for Houston, and we have not seen that. Against Portland, we saw great moments, and we saw Rachel Daly doing what Rachel Daly does and getting these goals and good moments. But it was a full 90-minute game of 11 players on the pitch for Houston, competing really well, putting a high press on, winning the ball back. All 5 goals came in the run of play, none of them from set pieces, which I thought that's pretty impressive to do. It's one thing to score off set pieces. It's one thing to score in the run of play, and in a variety of ways, crosses into the box, long balls over top, balls on the ground, shots, headers. It was a variety of goals from Houston. It was a good game. I think Rachel Daly had a quote after the game, something like unbelievable. Like, I think this was the best we've ever played collectively.
You get amped after games like that. I mean, I think a huge part of it too is that, quite frankly, this is a league in which scorelines like that don't happen often. I think you can maybe count them off on your hands the amount of times where there's been like a 5-goal plus.
And honestly, it could have been 6 or 7. I think Michelle Losey.
Yeah, one got called off, I think.
Yeah, one got called off. There was another one. Michelle Losey could have had one towards the end of the game. She got subbed on, and she ultimately got the 5th goal that happened for Houston. But I think she could have had another one. It was almost like a copy and paste situation. Yeah. She scored the second one. So it was like 7-0. Are you kidding me?
I think for me, I think what's most impressive about Houston, just with this game specifically, is how much they're doing with how little they're doing. Mm-hmm. I guess, if that makes sense. I mean, just with this game alone. I mean, they had less of the possession. They had far less touches on the ball. We're talking 576 total touches to 731 from the Pride. They were not great in their passing percentages. They, I think, were under 70% in this one compared to Orlando with over 80%, and their pass attempts into the final third again almost under 60%. I think it's 63 compared to Orlando Pride. So I think these goals coming in on some of these services into the box were just incredibly well timed, well executed. Crosses or services or passes over the top and into the box, just making it count when they needed to make it count. And I think that is, if anything, that makes it even more impressive. Even when you're creating this much or doing this much with the little that maybe you're doing in some of the other statistical areas. When we're looking at Orlando Pride, though, in this one, this is a team that had put together a string of results, at one point, and now coming off of a tough loss like this, we saw some pretty good looks from Sydney Leroux in this match. Mm-hmm. I think, not having Johns that are available or maybe moving her out of kind of that deeper midfield role, maybe kind of came back to bite. It kind of came back to bite them in this one. Again, I don't think you make that adjustment and say, we're going to lose this 5-0, but it was evident that something was not working there for them. And that was part of it, but huge, massive win for the Dash here. And really, I think, good way to start off their June. Good way to sort of bid farewell to somebody like Rachel Daly, who's so big for them in the team. But we've got some more lopsided scorelines to get through here. Portland Thorns versus Angel City. This one ending in a 3-0 scoreline in the way of Portland. They're taking all 3 points with all 3 of those goals. I got to say, this was another Another match for me, I think for both of us, Lisa, we went Portland in this one. We're looking at picks. So we both went Portland in this one, but this is another one where I think we can maybe echo some similar sentiments here, right? Less possession for Portland, less touches, total touches on the ball. The passing percentages are maybe a little bit more level there between these two teams, but making it count. I mean, Sophia Smith making sure that this team got on the board early with the service to Kelly Hubley, and Kelly Hubley putting this away and getting a goal. So you're talking the opening 15 minutes, you're already up 1-0 against the opposition, and then just minutes later you have Sinclair getting on the ball again, so they have this 2-0 lead going into halftime, and then just past the hour mark it's Sinclair again making it 3-0. I almost kind of felt like was this going to be a game that was going to have a really big lopsided scoreline?
5-0.
Yeah, like maybe like Houston, right? I was like, oh geez, I was like, maybe it's something in the water about these matches that took place on during the later nights. We talk about NWSL after dark all the time, but I'm just like, geez, I'm like, maybe it's just one of these things that are it's going to be sort of a theme this weekend. But yeah, no, I love it. And I think for the Portland side of things, if anything, I'm really enjoying kind of the link up. I'm enjoying the assists more than maybe the execution or the finishing. Smith, Sugita, Janine Becky getting on the scoreboard with that assist to Sinclair. I think that's a very, very promising for a team. I think that's been looking for maybe a little bit of a bigger scoreline.
Oh, completely. This is Portland's first win since April 30th. They are back on the winning side of things, and they did it in a very commanding way. And I was impressed with the Portland side that we saw. We knew what we were getting. In the first 10 minutes, I was like, okay, Portland's getting a goal. It's coming any second now. 15th minute, it came off a corner kick. Kelly Hubley gets her first NWSL career goal. Love to see it when a center back gets a goal. Sandra, we love it here at Attacking Third. But it was great for Kelly Hubley, but it was like Portland was bursting at the seams with all the attack they had, all of the pressure that they were putting on Angel City's back line. We saw for Angel City, Tyler Lucy in the back line again, playing in that outside right back position. She actually had a goal line save after a goal or a shot, excuse me. It was a Smith, and then Sinclair took a shot from it, and Lucy was able to save this off the goal line. But yeah, I mean, Danny Fitzpatrick, I agree. Sophia Smith, wow. This player was everywhere, all over the pitch. She looked confident in her abilities. She looked like she knew what she was doing. She knew exactly the holes that she needed to get into. She was playing off of Sinclair so well, which we've seen. We've seen them have that great chemistry and be able to go back and forth with each other and read each other and play off of each other. But the chemistry between Sinclair and Smith was really impressive and fun to watch. Smith was getting better shots on goal, better opportunities in front of the goal, where she maybe didn't do that in the last 5 or so games with Portland. It was like, come on, Smith, you got to put those away. And now we saw her playing much more to her potential and much more relaxed and comfortable. She, on the corner kick, she got the assist for Kelly Hubley's goal, and she was instrumental in both of Christine Sinclair's goals. As you mentioned, Becky, huge job for her. There was also a goal called back for Portland, so it could have been 4-0 in this match. And unfortunately, Sophia Smith got the yellow card called against her in that play, so the goal was called back. But this was a fast-paced game. Portland controlled it. Despite not having the possession in the numbers wise, Portland controlled this game. It was almost like Big Brother Portland putting little brother Angel City in their position a little bit. As we talked about in the Challenge Cup, Portland won the first one, and then Angel City won that second matchup and spoiled the Challenge Cup playoffs for Portland. And now Portland,
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think like when we were doing a preview of some of these matches, like some of them and making our picks, we were like, there's going to be, there's these matches where you have these teams going up against each other where there's that familiarity from the Challenge Cup, and maybe that leads to clogged games a little bit, or maybe they're just kind of like games that kind of grind out because of the repetitive nature of playing the same team over and over. But that, I think for the Thorns in this one, we didn't really see that as much. I'm with you on Smith. Everyone's, sort of responding and reacting to Smith's presence on the pitch for the Thorns. And I'm loving what we're seeing from her as a player. Just even in this game, getting the assist in this match, leading the team in chances created during this match. With 4 second behind Sinclair, and in total shots, I believe in this one as well. It's not just so much that she's someone who can be clinical in front of net. We've seen that. I think it's an area that she's still working on early in the season, but it's also just her creation and her ability to just kind of stretch these back lines and kind of open up lanes a bit for her teammates, that kind of keeps that attack looking maybe unpredictable, I think, for some of the oppositions. And tough day, I think, at the office for Angel City. When we're looking at the Angel City side of things, I think maybe we got to take a look at how this is going to be a new month for them. It was an impressive May that we saw from Angel City, but now we're looking ahead. It's a new month in the regular season here, and I think maybe what we're going to start to see is maybe a little bit of difference, I think, in competition when it comes to seeing some of these teams moving forward. I mean, you have a lot of the narrative during that first month of regular season play where we heard it from all the teams, quite frankly, whenever we were getting on calls with them or participating in media availabilities. It's about still establishing your level of play, figuring out team identities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We hear that verbiage coming out from these teams, but something happens when you trek into that second month of the regular season. That stuff is starting to get figured out a little bit. And I think even though you had so much familiarity between these two teams, that you see a team like Portland that has certain levels of experience on it within their, some of their young, players on the team that kind of show through in these moments. I mean, a Christine Sinclair brace, I think that's part of what tells the story of a match like this as well. So good on them. I know this was a team, I think I said, yes, I'm going Portland, but I wanted to see a little bit more of a statement win. I'm like, I need to see more goals from this team, and we got it in this one.
Yeah, we definitely did. I want to look a little bit at stats just before we close out on this side, because Angel City, they've generated so many corner kicks throughout this regular season. 15 last weekend, and they couldn't get a goal. 13 against Portland. So Portland gave away 13 corner kicks, but Angel City needs to be capitalizing on those set piece opportunities. It needs to happen. If you're getting that many opportunities in and around your box to send balls in, you have to have a variety of plays that you can do, whether it's low driven balls to the near post, you're playing it short. We saw that a number of times. Wait till we get to Kansas City game. That's how they scored both their goals, but playing it short, change of direction, and getting the ball in there, lofting it towards the back post. You have to have a variety of plays and be able to capitalize on those opportunities. And Angel City's just not there yet. With the amount of corner kicks that they're generating, I'm disappointed in the lack of result that we're getting from them on those corner kicks.
Yeah, I think that's an area where it's like you're looking at areas of which maybe they can try to improve on. And I think maybe moving forward into the matches remaining in the month of June for them, it's something that they're perhaps going to try to keep an eye on. That could be like a little X factor for this team if they can work on that and get that right.
Completely. I'm always picking out something that teams can get better at. Come on, that's what we do here.
Let's take a look at this final lopsided scoreline for the high scoring affairs over the weekend. Racing Louisville FC versus North Carolina Courage. I think for the picks in this one, Lisa, what did we break down in this one in the preview?
You had North Carolina. I had a draw between these two sides. It was my draw was also contingent on Kerolin being back. She was back for North Carolina. Not only was she back, she got a start. We saw Dr. Nadia Nadim on the bench and also get minutes for Racing Louisville. There are just so many storylines around this game. But of course, North Carolina wins 3-0 over Racing Louisville. Another dominant win that we saw in the first win for North Carolina in this regular season, which is shocking.
Yeah, I think, listen, I don't blame you there. I think this is a team that we wanted to see. We wanted to see the success of their Challenge Cup translate into the regular season, because this is a team that we were used to seeing getting results, getting wins during that moment. And it wasn't necessarily something that we saw translating into this first month of regular season action. But now here they are, going up against Louisville on the road. making some noise pretty early in this, getting on the board very, very early, opening 5 minutes, Dabinia to Kurtz, boom. You are, I think, are already setting the tone right there. Having somebody back in the mix like a Kerolin, I think, sort of maybe re-energizes your team a little bit. This is a player that they were very clearly excited to add to the roster and to the locker room. And I think the few having the ankle sprain and being out for the month of May, and now getting back on the pitch and getting her legs back underneath her, I think is going to be helpful for this team moving forward. But having that early start to this match, and then kind of adding another one just before halftime with Matthias to Ordonez, I think that maybe kind of, it's like a bookend a little bit, I think, for that first half, right? For this team. And it's you're down. If you're the other side of the pitch, you're down 2-0 going into half. And that's not an unmanageable game, right? I think if you're looking at things from the other side. But, again, we're talking about maybe putting some numbers out here, in terms of these matches. Louisville, again, just despite seeing a ton of time on the ball, they had the majority of possession in this one. And we hear a lot about how this league, it's a very, very transitional league. And this, I think, is another one of these games where we just sort of saw that you don't need a ton of the ball in this one if you're gonna come out and get these type of results.
Yes. The numbers and the scoreline of this one, I don't think it's necessarily entirely indicative of how the game played out. Racing Louisville had chances. They had moments. They had the ball, as you mentioned, had a lot of possession. Jess McDonald had good looks. In the 25th minute or so, she had a bullet of a shot off the post. It was a breakaway moment for Racing Louisville, and that's what we saw, right? We saw those moments where Racing Louisville had that high press, which is something Kim Bjorkegren wants his team to do, win the ball back higher, and then quickly look to go and attack. And North Carolina's defense is organized, right? When looking at these starting lineups, I mean, Kerolin was back in the starting lineup. There was Deanna Ordonez, Brianna Pinto, Dabinia, Kerolin, and then the back line really strong for North Carolina with Pickett and Matthias and Casey Murphy in goal. So North Carolina had full strength across the board in their starting 11. So because of that, you give a lot of credit to the defensive abilities of North Carolina, because Racing Louisville didn't make it easy. It wasn't an easy game for North Carolina to defend, because Jess McDonald was very dangerous when she got the ball. Amina Ekic subbed on for Racing Louisville in the second half, and she created a lot of opportunities on transition, getting the ball at her feet, creating opportunities. It was a quick game because Louisville was looking to go fast in transition, and North Carolina also does that. But the fact that this opening goal for North Carolina came in the 4th minute, that hurt Racing Louisville, right? Like, that was a bit of a dagger. And then getting that second goal right before the halftime, it's different going into the locker room down 1-0 at a goal that came in the 4th minute versus down 2-0, a goal that came at the start of the half and at the end of the half. There's so many more pieces now that you have to pick up and put back together. And then, of course, Dabinia ends up netting the third for North Carolina. And this was a beautiful goal. It was an incredible ball over the top. She was not offside. Not at all.
It came all the way at stoppage time, like final stoppage time.
And it was a great goal. She was wide open. I liked this game a lot, actually. I liked what we saw from it and everything that came about it, but you can't just look at stats, because it doesn't tell you exactly what happened or score line. Because I think
there was a goal that was called off, I think, at one point. And like, you could see, and then the stretch of the second half, it was a different second half, I think, for this Racing Louisville side. When you're looking at kind of that insurance goal coming from the Kurds, I'm pointing it out because it came in 90th minute plus stoppage time, and I'm just kind of like, well, that's because within maybe that second half, Louisville was, making their effort to sort of get back in the game. And, that's soccer. Sometimes you can't control how the officials see things or don't see things. I thought she was on, McDonald was on for that, but moments like that, you wonder if the goal's allowed, or it could shift things a little bit. But perhaps I liked what we saw from Louisville more in the second half than we saw in that first half, kind of maybe level things out a little bit. If you do want to look at the stats on this one, if you do want to look at the numbers, the 12 to 10 shots for Louisville, or even the attempts on goal, 3 to 5 compared to North Carolina. But I think if you're North Carolina, this is a game that you're looking at and just sort of maybe saying, yes, here it is. Here is the game that we've been looking for, to maybe kind of, that sets the catalyst in motion for them to kind of maybe go on a bit of a run here, have a streak, because it was the month of May was, I think, a tough one for this team, among other teams, trying to sort of get their footing back in from Challenge Cup and then into the regular season. But that's it for the lopsided high scoring affairs